Talk the Walk. This is a platform where we talk about all things empowerment, empowering the next generation, sharing our success and our struggles as artists, and most importantly, learning how to walk with God in this beautiful journey. And today with me is a beautiful, talented lady. I'm sure most of you have seen her on a lot of billboards and Netflix soon. So I'll not preempt everything, but give it up for Bethany. So Bethany.
So like she said, I'm Bethany. I've been modeling for about 10 years now, so it's been a lot of fun. I started right here in Winnipeg, which has been a great experience because I always thought I'd have to move away to model and to actually make it in modeling. So yeah, it's been a great journey of 10 years so far.
Wow, 10 years.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge. And listen, wait, so when you moved, where did you move to?
So I moved to Grand Forks. It was just for a relationship that didn't end up working out. So I was glad that we did come back to Winnipeg because that's where it all started, and you know, home is home. So.
Oh, tell me about it. Home is best. So you've been in the modeling industry for 10 years. Wow, guys, like that's amazing. Take us through the journey. Like, when did you first realize that I have an interest in the modeling industry, and how did that go about?
So I actually have always wanted to be a singer my whole life, and modeling was not even in my vision of what I would do. And then actually I got somebody reached out to me, they were having a modeling workshop, and that's how I'm very creative, so I was like, I'll check it out, see what it's about, and it happened to spark this creativity in me that I didn't know I had. And the thing about portraying, having a designer say, this is what I'm looking for, can you portray that, was a way of me being able to express myself and to take on that challenge of, yeah, I think I could do that. And then once you nail that shot, it feels good.
They call it the money shot.
Yeah, so I attended a few workshops, and in that time I just networked with people and met new people, and within, I'd say, a year or so, one of the photographers that I had met reached out to me and said he had a client that was looking for someone who looked like me, so asked if he could put my name out there, and a week later they contacted me, and it ended up being Warehouse One. So
wow.
Yeah, nice big company right here in Winnipeg. So I modeled with them for about 4 years, and to my knowledge, that was not common because, they like new faces and new looks, and that's the name of the game. And so I feel very blessed that I was able to model with them for so long. But in that time, I also, in my networking, I made friends that lived in the States. My initial wanting to model, once I got the spark, was I wanted to be a native model and model for native designers. And that's kind of how I started. So, but then it came to a point where someone had said to me, why would you limit just your market to native modeling? And that really spoke to me because I was like, I'm very proud of being an Indigenous woman, but they were right. I wanted to venture out, and then that's kind of the timing when Warehouse One reached out to me. Wow. So I've seen God's favor and just His blessing in a lot of my journey because a lot of it I wasn't looking for, and so God just placed opportunities in my life, and yeah.
Wow, guys, like it's truly a blessing working with a company for 4 years. That's just amazing. And you know what? Bethany is not just a model. She is an international model. So tell us about your international experience. I understand that you also went to LA for film castings, and you also shot for different designers and different companies. How was that experience?
It was actually Miami. But that's okay.
I apologize.
It's okay. I actually have a really good friend that I made here in Winnipeg. She's Canadian, not from Winnipeg, she's from Ontario, but she's lived down in the States, and she's a military wife, so she's moved all over. So that's how I kind of got into the international part, because she would have designers send her stuff, and we would go out in Miami, for example. We had 7 designers in 5 days, and we had to nail Yeah, it was a go, but it was amazing. We would drive down Miami streets and be like, that's a great spot. Let's park and hop out here. And it was kind of my first, I don't know, I felt like a somebody. I know I'm a somebody, no.
You are. Girl, don't forget that you're a queen, okay? Your dad is a king out there.
Yes. It's crazy though, because I didn't have like a lot of self-esteem going into this. I just, I knew that I was beautiful because, your parents tell you and stuff, but it came to a point where I needed my own confidence. And so being down in Miami was kind of a blast because people would, all of a sudden we'd have crowds of people and like they'd be watching us. And I remember we were driving up to the Keys, actually, Key West. And we stopped by this, what do you call it, a boat, like a marina. And because she's like, let's try to see if we can take pictures by these boats, And so we go and it says no trespassing. So we're like, oh, maybe we shouldn't go, but we did. And a gentleman came over to us and was like, hey, we have a boat. Do you guys want to take some pictures on our boat? And as we were walking up to the boat, there was an outdoor bar. And my friend just looked at us and she's like, are you girls ready? Because now you have an audience. And that kind of like put us on spot and we were like, whoa. But it was a really cool game changer. And so being in Miami was crazy. I've been to Virginia a couple times and Washington. We did a photo shoot in Washington, D.C.
Wow.
Yeah, so we did a couple castings also actually when we were in Miami. But Miami, we didn't hear back from them, so that's fine.
You never know. In case they're watching, please.
Yeah, so in the modeling industry, as you also know, rejection is huge out there. So just knowing who God has created me to be, that's one thing in my journey. I had a lot of people saying that I shouldn't go into modeling because I'm a Christian. And that was really conflicting for me because I thought, this is a way to express myself. But I think a lot of what happens is people, at least Christian people that I've come in contact with, when they think of modeling, they think of you becoming half naked or, that type of stuff. And I always I've had a son since I started modeling, so he was 2 when I started. So I always thought in my mind, I never want something out there that he can one day look up and be ashamed or be embarrassed or that some of his friends could use against him, or even that my dad would see and I wouldn't, it wouldn't make him proud. So that's always been in the back of my mind. So going out to Miami, having the nose, I was okay with because I've just heard about the industry out there and, they like a lot of bikini models and not knocking anyone who does that because, if that empowers you, great. But just me personally, I felt God telling me that's not what I've called you to be and what I've called you to do. So just like walking through that and learning who I was very important so that I wouldn't slip up and I wouldn't fall into what the world perceives as what could be beautiful. Because I always challenge myself, if you can look sexy in an outfit, you've mastered sexy. Because anybody can take off their clothes. I'm sorry, but anybody can look sexy. Well, maybe not anybody. But you know what I mean? It's easy to take off your clothes and try to look sexy. It is very hard to look sexy in a full-blown outfit.
That's true.
So that's one thing that's been really important for me. I've had to turn down. I got really excited one time of a gentleman photographer reaching out to me wanting to do a black and white photo shoot, and at that time I was all about black and white photos. So of course I was like interested, but then he sent me his was the test shot or what his idea was, and it was literally from the back of my neck to the bottom of my thighs naked. So it would be my back and butt. And I was just like, Lord, I thank you that you've instilled in me being able to say no and knowing my standards, because at the time I really wanted to work with this photographer, and I was pumped that he had reached out to me, but in no way was I about to take off my clothes to get that shot. So it's been a lot of me even saying no to projects because I know who I am and who God has created me to be. And yeah, it's been a cool journey. I mean, when I started modeling, a lot of the shows were in bars. So it was hard to navigate that because, you know, then we'd all have a drink afterwards, and I wouldn't say that I was shining God's light at the beginning. I always knew my values and my morals, but, you know, it's easy to get pulled into situations. And so once God really did a work in me, and I think it was the time when I started going with Warehouse One, that really kind of set things off for me, because it was a whole nother level of modeling and a lot more, not to say that those weren't professional shoots or professional fashion shows, they were, but it was just a whole nother level with Warehouse One, and it, like I said, gave me a confidence that I didn't even realize I had. So that was a really cool experience. And then come now, with all the rejection I've gotten, I model for Anne Muller, which is a local business here in Winnipeg. Métis company, bamboo clothing, great. Got you, Anne.
Make sure to follow, like, and purchase her products, guys. We'll put a link somewhere. And in case if she's watching, we would love to have you on the show.
So that was really cool. Again, that was God's provision and His favor in my life, because I just happened to be getting out of a full-time job that I didn't think would last very long because it wasn't what I wanted to do. And so I just happened to be getting laid off, and she happened to ask me if I wanted to work in her boutique. And so I was like, wow, I've never sold clothing before, but let's give this a shot, because I did a shoot with her that summer and a fashion show, and we got along great. And so, and I mean, when you love the product, it's hard not to want to work, or, you know. So then I started modeling for her, and I became the face of the brand almost. And yeah, it was a pretty cool experience. And then when she relaunched it used to be Yollanda Designs, and then it became Anne Muller. That relaunch, I was very involved. I helped choreograph the fashion show, and I was in the fashion show, and so I've been shooting with her for the last 3-4 years, which has been amazing. And just, it's cool to see the growth in the photos. That's one thing.
There is one challenge that's going on social media right now, when they put 2 pictures and they're like, where it started and where it's going.
Oh my goodness, my first photos. I thought it was good.
I know, I can relate. The best photo shoot you have as a model, you be feeling it. Only years later to look at it and just what was I doing here?
Legit.
But wow, that's such an amazing journey, hey. But how was that transition for you, to becoming a Christian model, and how were you able to explain it to your agency, and how did they take it as well? Because modeling is also involved with a lot of nudity and stuff that goes on, so I can imagine you having to tell them that I'm not comfortable with this anymore because I have decided to follow Christ. How is that transition for you?
So I actually haven't had to turn down anything yet with the agency, but I look forward to it. I honestly, when that day comes, because people, when you're filled with the love of God, you shine differently, right? And when I was with Warehouse One, they would say, do the Bethany, and it became a do the Bethany, and it was just a happy-go-lucky, laughing, and that really to me was God, you're shining through this, and being able to just be me and be who God has created me to be, and people be attracted to that. I've seen how people have reacted to that, and it's allowed me to be more free in knowing, I go to church every Sunday. I lead worship at my church. I love the Lord. Do you need prayer? I'll pray with you. So it's been cool to bring God into it that way, because God goes everywhere with me, so that's my homeboy.
So how do we do the Bethany? Girl,
Just
you,
like-
you're gonna look me up.
You just smile, you laugh, you know, act cute.
Okay, it's okay. Alright guys, so we will meet you shortly just after the break. Grab a glass of water, cup of hot tea. I love choco, so grab whatever you can and we will meet you just after the break. Shout out to the beauty that's behind the glow, Makeup by Tips. Thank you so much guys. Make sure to follow her on her Instagram page and her social media. No, make sure to follow her on her social media handles. We'll post the link somewhere here in the video. And also shout out to Le Royals for the beautiful earrings. You guys are amazing. And most importantly, shout out to Rainham Abattoir Zimbabwe. Rainham Abattoir created a platform where if you have relatives that are abroad, they can order meat for their loved ones back home in Zimbabwe. All they have to do is go to www.rainhamabattoir.co.zw, place their order online, put in the receiver's address, and guess what? You will get your order within 24 hours and delivery is absolutely for free anywhere in Hawaii. So make sure to go to www.rainhamabattoir.co.zw. So back to my conversation with the beautiful Bethany. I'm sure a lot of girls are probably wondering, well, they're probably thinking, I want to become a model, but how do I go about getting a modeling agency? And when you started, did you start off with a modeling agency or they just came along the way? How did that go? Even when you went to the USA, because I understand that with a lot of international modeling, it does involve a lot of agencies and paperwork and all that. So how did you go about that?
So I've been a freelance model since starting, and recently when I was working with Anne Miller, a lot of the other girls who would be in our photo shoots were from Switch here in Winnipeg. And so one of the girls had reached out to me on social media and said, you know, I've seen you on set with our girls, wondering if you're looking for an agency and if you want to come in and see. So I had never really wanted to be a part of an agency, only because I heard of the horror stories of you need to look A, B, and C, you know, and I was in a place where if people want to work with me, that's where I want to be, and if you don't, that's fine. I don't want to be told how to look. I don't want to be told I need to be a certain measurement, because I've always been a little curvy girl, so, you know, embrace those curves.
Yo had it.
So when she reached out to me, I was just like, wow, that's, again, I was called to be, it reminds me of David in the Bible, how he was called, and how he was just in the fields, tending to his sheep, and he was called to be, you know, in the palace and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see how God has put people in situations in my life, and so I went in and I talked to them, and I wasn't sure if it was really for me, but then, you know, praying about it, I just felt like, you know what, this doesn't come along every day that people reach out to you and, hey, I want you to model in our agency. So I went and I checked out a couple get-togethers that they had, and they've been giving me casting since, so it's been cool to be on that side of things after being a freelance model for so long, because I got to a point where I wasn't really looking for jobs. I was working full-time, so I was just kind of, it seemed like the opportunities were starting to kind of like fizzle away, which was fine, you know, seasons, right? And so now I'm back in a season where, you know, I just redid my headshots, and thanks guys. Yeah, so it's, I'm excited for what's yet to come, because to have someone vouch for me, I think I'm in a place where it's a lot of work to find the work. So if having an agency is where it's at now, it's my time.
Wow, guys, I mean, you have had it for yourselves, guys. That's such a beautiful and amazing story, okay? And I love how you've gained more confidence in you knowing God and knowing, you know, where you stand and where God is taking you. That just brings a whole different level of confidence, which is really nice. And that's one thing that I was like, you know what? you know, because as Christians and being in the arts industry as well, there's certain times when you have to draw those boundaries and say, no, I am standing like this. These are my values. These are my morals. And often people get lost, you know, like just trying to find their identity in between those lines. So I'm really proud, and I cannot wait to see what the Lord has in store for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and my last question is, so how are you handling being a mom, being a model, and also running a business, by the way, loving the earrings?
Oh, thank you. BWilson Collection, you know.
Make sure to follow and purchase. Don't just follow, but also place an order.
So it's interesting, actually. Love being a mom. Been a single mom since my son was born. That was not, you know, something that I thought would ever happen. And when it happened, it was in a time in my life where he saved me. Which, you know, I was living in the world, and even though I'm a pastor's daughter, I had this whole vision of my life. So being a single mom was not in that vision, but you know, you make certain choices, and so the fact that I'm a mom, it helps motivate me, because I want to be an example to my son, even though I don't think he'll be in modeling or whatever, but just to persevere, right? And to continue going on and follow your passion. Because that was one thing for me, was when I brought up modeling to my parents, I didn't feel their full support because they had their eye about modeling, right? So I really had to prove to them, as well to myself, that no, I'm gonna take modeling on a different route. I'm not gonna do the nudity, the half naked. So it was a lot of, like I said, knowing what I wanna do. And I think that's very important when you become a model, is know your lane and know who you are, because if you don't, you will go into places. And I've heard stories of women that are like, yeah, I did this shoot and I don't feel good about it, and now it's out there. And wow. And so to me, I'm like, thank you, Lord, for instilling in me, and just even for my parents teaching me, you know, certain things. And I mean, of course, a girl wants to be sexy, but you can find ways to be sexy without taking off your clothing.
You had that.
So that's my one advice to girls, is take on that challenge to put on a full outfit and make it sexy. Because if you can do that, you can conquer the world.
You know, yeah, like put on the full armor of God.
Absolutely. So then with my earrings, I was out in Grand Forks, and I was married, and it was great until it wasn't. And when that happened, you know, divorce was never an option for me, but it all of a sudden was, and it was. I am thankful that the situation happened, and that he gave me no option, pretty much. So in that time, I started to bead, and like I said, I'm very creative. So at first, it was a lot of, oh, you're lazy, because, you know, coming home, and I'm just sitting on the couch beading. So I had a stigma towards my beading. So then leaving that relationship, coming home, I stopped beading. But then I realized that beading brought a lot of healing to my life. And while I would bead, God would give me visions of things to bead. Like, I don't sit there and graft out a plan. I just kind of start beading, and whatever comes to my mind, I'm just like, let's do it, you know? And so like, I sing while I bead, I pray while I bead, I try to like, you know, have God be a part of everything. So in that, he brought a lot of healing from my divorce, because I had like this stigma because of the words that were said in that relationship. And now, like, when I worked for Andréane, I made a pair of earrings, and she's like, let me sell those in my boutique. And that's kind of what really sparked the business side of it for me. At first, I would just make them and give them to friends and my mom and, you know, aunties and family and stuff. But once she saw that light in me, it kind of catapulted me in wanting to, you know what, I think I do want to sell them. I think I do want to create a business in this. Even though I never saw myself as being a business owner, right? Like, so that's kind of been a really cool venture on its own, because I just never thought that, like I said, I'd own a business. And so it's been cool to see God use the vision, and like when I've done a piece, it's like, wow. And I mean, there's those times where I do a piece and I'm like, I'm not gonna do the other earring. I don't like that one. But then I choose, you know, I have have this big pile of unfinished earrings, and I'm like, maybe I should. And it's funny because sometimes those are the earrings that people are like, I want that one.
Wow.
And in my mind, I'm like, nobody's gonna want that. So it's really cool to see how that happens. And yeah.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. Good guys. And how do you keep trusting in God like during dry times? Because I understand that the arts industry is the seasons when you have so many jobs and the seasons when you barely have any jobs. So how do you keep trusting in God, and how are you able to come out of that season and say, hey, even though I'm not getting jobs, Lord, you're still God?
Well, I think it's just seeing His grace in my life, and to be, for example, a single mom and then divorced, and I lead worship in my church. That to me is like, so that little example is like, no matter what I go through, and now it's at a point where I know what God has called me to do. So even if there's those lull times, I know that there's a greater purpose. And in those lull times, maybe He wants me to draw closer to Him. Maybe He wants me to dive into my Bible more, so that I am prepared for going out into those situations that He has destined for me. Wow. So that's kind of what I hold on to, because up until now, I've seen Him make a way. When there was no way, oh, Lord has made a way. He has. So I just hold on to that, and the joy of the Lord is my strength. And that is my life quote. And I often wonder, like, Bethany, you've been through so much. People have been through a lot worse, I'm sure, but and then they're like, how are you so happy? How are you, like, some people think it's a hoax, and I'm like, if you knew my Jesus, you'd be as happy as I am. So the fact that I've wanted to turn my back all these times, and that God keeps pulling me back, and it was a lot of the time was, I don't even know if I'm hearing from God, and that was my struggle. But then realizing that He is that still small voice. It's not this Bethany, It's like that inner, and it's been a really cool thing to be able to hear God's voice in those times, because to think if I had not come back to Him and not, like, I don't know where life would be. And like, I'm trying to raise a man for the Lord, and a man who loves the Lord. So I can only do that by living by example, right? And a lot of my hardships have been fighting in church, crying to God in church. And my son has seen that. So I think in like my healing, God has done so much in my son's view, because I don't go to the bar to turn to, to help medicate me or all that type of stuff. So God is faithful, and the fact, I'm just so thankful that I've been this faithful and now living in obedience. And like, when you live in obedience, you get this higher, stronger bond, and you feel more empowered, and I don't know, I feel more happy all the time. Even during COVID, like, it's been a roller coaster, but God has done so much in my life. And it's funny because I was in a place where I was like, I have to be careful who I tell that to, because some people are going through a really hard time. And then somebody told me, like, no, they need to hear these encouraging stories. They need to know that God is still sovereign, and He is still in control. And so I'm just like, yeah, God is doing a lot in this world right now. And so just the fact that I can be joyful and hold on to the joy of the Lord is my strength. Because there have been times where, and it's kind of cool because I got to a place in my prayer life where, okay, God, I'm always happy. I'm done being happy. Like, I don't want to be happy. I just want to be blah. And then I would have like arguments, and I'd scream to God and like fight with Him. And then I feel okay, because it was like, no, God wants, you can't sugarcoat anything with God, right?
Yeah.
He knows your heart. And so if I'm like, oh, I'm so happy, but in my heart I'm like, brr. It got to a place for me where I had to be completely honest with how I was feeling with God. And once I was completely honest with God and kind of talked to Him, God's my homeboy. That's how I see Him. Like, if I want to gossip gossip, I go to God.
No.
I was a gossip back in the day. I won't even lie. But it got to a point where, and he gave me the strength that no girlfriend could give me, you know, and nobody could give me. So once I started having a truly honest talks with God, I couldn't not be angry anymore, because that joy would just come, that peace would come. And so, yeah.
We will definitely have a part 2 because her story is just amazing, guys, and I hope you guys have learned a lot. I keep saying last question because your girl has so much to say. But Bethany, this is not the last question, it's her last word to the viewers.
So I just wanted to let you guys know that you need to believe in yourself, because that's the starting point of where to go from here. If you don't believe in yourself, others aren't going to believe in you. Second, keep God your focus. Pray, talk to Him. Learn, if you don't know how to pray, ask somebody how to pray. Reach out to those people that you know, close people who can help you. I hope you can learn from the things that I've said. You know, be honest with God, because God already knows your thoughts before you think them. So be honest with God, be honest with yourself. If you don't know who you are, know who you are, so that you don't falter, so that you don't go into the world and not be prepared for what is coming. Because people will ask you to do certain things that maybe you're not comfortable with, and you need to be strong enough in yourself and in the Lord, and know who God has created you to be in order to say no to those roles. And you'd be surprised, people will respect you a lot more for, wow, that girl said no to that role, or that girl said no to that photo shoot. Why? And then that's your opportunity to tell them, you know, I have this relationship with God. And then they'll be like, who's this God? And so I just hope that, you know, if you have that dream and passion, you go for it, because you can't put God in a bubble or a box. God is not, you cannot limit God, because God has such a bigger picture you can't even envision for yourself. He envisions it for you. So just follow God, and He will take you places that, girl, you don't even know.
In my language, they say, guys, this has been such an amazing conversation with Bethany, and I hope you guys learned a lot. Thank you so much for tuning in, and make sure to watch out for the next episode. But before I go, shout out to Reina Abattoir, shout out to Makeup by Tips, shout out to Le Hoya Earrings. You guys are amazing, you're fantastic. Shout out to Amulay. If you're watching, we'd definitely love to have you as one of our sponsors and also one of our guests. We feel like your story will motivate a lot of people. Also, special shout out to Sage. Thank you so much for blessing us with the diffuser. It smells and the scent is just amazing. So guys, we'll see you next episode. Yollanda out.